All right, we are very lucky to be joined now by one of my absolute favorite authors, which is actually true. His book, The People Know, is now out on paperback. He's also author of What's the Matter with Kansas, Listen Liberal. What other ones you got out there?
The Wrecking Crew.
Pity the Billionaires,
about this town. Yeah.
There we go.
So
yeah, my study of Washington, D.C.
You should literally read all of his books. I cannot recommend them highly enough. Great to see you, Thomas Frank.
It's so great to be here, and you guys, congratulations on everything, all the success that you've had with your show.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank
that.
you very much. Well, I mean, you're an inspiration in a lot of ways of some of the core themes of the show. One of the things that you were extraordinarily prescient on, which is relevant to the release of your book in paperback, is the way that the pandemic has been used to once again vilify populism and meaning vilifying regular people and weaponizing this all to say, look, these people are idiots. Trust us. We're the scientists.
Yes,
we got this covered.
I know. I'm so sick of it that it's also to me so obvious that it's hard to talk about. But the whole last 4 years, it feels like it's been a kind of struggle of what you would call authorized authorities to suppress various challenges to themselves. And one of the things that you see all these things that they were saying, there's something has gone wrong with the American people. They don't respect credentialed authority anymore. They were saying this 4 years ago, and then the pandemic seemed to make that even more urgent. We had to respect science, we had to listen to the science, et cetera, which of course I do. I'm vaccinated, I wear a mask, I do all those things. But it's been a fascinating time. Especially the way, to get back to the original subject, the way the sort of American commentary class has turned against what they call populism. This is fascinating to me. I way back when in the 1980s, I went to graduate school in history, and I thought, well, I'm going to study populism. I was fascinated by this movement from the 1890s. And historians, generally speaking, really were fond of populism. They wrote nice things about it. There's this great book that came out in the 70s. All these people were writing about it. Everybody loved populism. And there were a lot of people in Washington that liked populism too. I remember there was a faction of sort of left-wing Democrats that called their annual meeting like the New Populist Conference or something. I forget what they called it. Barack Obama even called himself a populist at one point.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden it changed, and instead they decided, no, populists are these terrible, these sort of monstrous creatures. Populists are people that don't know their rightful place in the hierarchy, by which I mean their lowly place in the hierarchy.
Of course.
Yeah, populists are people that don't listen to authorized authority. And it's just been the strangest damn thing. Anyhow, so I wrote a whole book about it.
It's interesting, Tom. Let's go ahead and put your most recent article here up on the screen. It's The Healthcare System Stupid in Le Monde Diplomatique. And so what are you trying to get at there in terms of populist is now an insult in the U.S., especially when applied to the anti-expertise reactions to the current pandemic. But the true history of U.S. populism is a long fight to replace medical experts at the service of the well-being of ordinary people. What do you mean by that in the context of this pandemic?
So I'm fascinated by this idea that populism, that what it means is a rebuke of learning. Because it's not. Historically, if you look at the original populist movement, it was an uprising against the elites of the time, of the 1890s, but the populists did not dislike learning itself. They respected it. They honored it. This was a mass movement of farmers and workers, by the way. They were not highly educated people, but they did admire learning. And they tried to, they would have experts on economics and political science and whatnot come out and lecture to their local farmers alliance and this kind of thing. So I was puzzled by that. And every time I heard someone say that populism was this rejection of science, I said to myself, what would a populist healthcare system actually look like? Let's reframe the question slightly. And once you put it that way and you start digging in the history of populist movements in America, what would they do about the healthcare situation that we're in? The answer it becomes apparent immediately. What populists were about was not rejecting medical expertise. It was about making medicine available to everyone, making medical expertise available to everyone. And there are many examples of this, probably the most famous being Harry Truman's, universal health care plan in the 1940s, which didn't go anywhere. But the idea was not to reject medical science. It was to make it accessible to everyone. And the really fascinating side of this, once you start looking into this, is not populism's war on science. Populism respected science. It's science's war on populism, by which I mean the medical profession. Who stopped Truman's healthcare plan?
Right, the doctors.
The AMA, yeah. And what were the grounds on which they stopped it? They said this was unethical to have politicians being able to order doctors around. It's a reversal of the traditional hierarchy. How can that be permitted? It can't. And this is still the argument today. You have to know your place in the social hierarchy.
One of the things that we've tracked with interest and oftentimes discussed is the way that, the media has loved these stories of like, oh, look at these people having a pool party. Yeah. Or look at this moron who didn't get vaccinated and now he's dead. And effectively cheerleading that and turning it all into this individual responsibility narrative. There's been a lot less interest in asking the question of, oh, hey, why is it that so many other developed nations have a better healthcare system that, lo and behold, has led to more people getting vaccinated because they have a relationship with the healthcare system, where you have millions of Americans who have no relationship with the healthcare system
and not only no relationship, they hate and fear the medical system.
Right.
They know that's where you go to get bankrupt.
That's right. We actually covered a survey where some proportion of people who were uninsured, who, by the way, the uninsured are less likely to get vaccinated, one of their fears was that, I know they say it's free, but I think I'm going to get charged.
Of course.
Not without justification.
And then there'll be something down the road, and who knows how they'll add on to it. There is tons of suspicion of that kind of thing. But also ask yourself, how did this become a culture war? I mean, this is one of the most lamentable aspects of this whole thing.
That's right.
And a big part of it is exactly what you're describing, this determination of the sort of well-educated in our society to, rub the faces of their inferiors in their failure and their sickness and this kind of thing. And it's like, that's not how you persuade people. I don't know, maybe this is going to be, I think this is like a really novel idea to a lot of Americans, but scolding people doesn't generally bring them around.
Yeah.
Scolding people in this manner. And I often think, in the big picture historical, like how would you handle, we've had other pandemics in American life and we've handled them much better. Now, why is that? Well, one of the reasons is because the people who are causing, who are not getting vaccinated now, back then had organizations that you could go to. For example, labor unions, for example, neighborhood clubs, whatever, churches, whatever. And those organizations are by and large gone today. And so they experience this whole conversation about healthcare and vaccinations as a one-way street, as people like us yelling at people like them. And that's just not a good way to sell this stuff.
No, you're exactly right. And part of the thing, we've tracked this in our show today, there is a new call. Jimmy Kimmel just did a big call yesterday on his show, and he was like, and he was making a joke, but he was saying, well, if you're vaccinated and you have a heart attack, we'll treat you. And if you're not vaccinated, RIP, essentially really celebrating the death of people who won't want to get vaccinated. And as I pointed out, this flies entirely in the face of the original idea behind Obamacare, which he fought to protect, which is you should not be able to deny people health care based upon a pre-existing condition. So I'm curious, because I've tracked culture war, how it rots the brains of people on the right, but it's very clear that it's also
it's
very much on the left as well.
I used to write about this as well. Remember What's the Matter with Kansas?
Yes.
I was astonished by this once I started digging into it. It's everywhere now. It's both sides. And there's also this, what you're describing is this kind of punitive impulse on the left.
Yeah.
This impulse to scold and correct and punish, discipline and punish on the left. And that is, I don't want to say it's new because somebody will immediately call in and be like, no, we can trace this all the way back to whatever, But it's something that feels new to me and feels recent and feels shocking and feels really uncomfortable. And you see it also in the demands for censorship, which you guys know all about. Of
course.
And this is all over the place in the sort of new liberalism, and it's. And I know we don't have a whole lot of time to go into every argument that I've made in the last couple of years, but I just want to say, I want to emphasize this. This is not how you build a left movement.
Right.
By scolding people and shushing people and telling people to go off and die. That's not how you do it.
Do you think that that's their goal, though? Because to me, it's so clear that scolding and censorship and constant purification of, everybody must have always believed the correct things from birth. It's so obvious that that's not the way to build a left movement.
Yeah.
That
it's obvious to you and me.
But it seems to me that that's not even their goal. It seems to me that oftentimes the goal is, I'm going to show how virtuous I am. I'm going to build my own personal clout. This is good for my brand. This is good for my personal profile on Twitter or whatever.
Yes.
The goal is not to persuade people to get vaccinated or to build a movement that could end in universal health care. The goal is their own sort of personal prestige.
Yeah, righteousness, personal self-righteousness, or alternately therapy. Christopher Lasch wrote about this back in the 70s.
Right. Mm-hmm.
This is, but you're exactly right that the goal is not to build a movement, and it's to feel good about yourself, to feel like you're more right. It's the old impulse. This has been a problem in left land since forever, that there's two basic impulses at war. One is we've got to build, if we want to reform this society in a democratic way, if we want to make healthcare universal, if we want to make the economy not so predatory, if we want to do any of these things, the only way to do it is with a mass movement of ordinary working class people. That's how it's done. We know that from history. That's pretty clear. The other impulse on the left is, I'm better than you. And the people who are on the left for that reason are not generally interested in building a mass movement. They're interested in purging. Mm-hmm. They're interested in kicking people out. They're interested in subtraction, not addition.
Yeah,
it's interesting, especially in the context when we have this tear sheet. Let's go ahead and put the Guardian one up there on the screen, because I do think this is very important.
Oh, look at that picture
there.
of me.
That's a good photo.
No, it's dreadful.
For those who are just listening, it's liberals want to blame right-wing misinformation for our problems. Get real. You talk a little bit, a story there of listening to a speech by Hillary Clinton and Melinda Gates, which I can't imagine how you got through that was. I
remember that like it was yesterday.
Tell us about what you're talking
in your
about.
mind.
This is important.
It was in 2015. I was writing Listen Liberal, and I went to a Clinton Foundation event in New York, and they were. A big part of it was celebrating social media as a kind of millennium. Social media had destroyed all the barriers to anybody can participate in any conversation now. Social media was like, it's like a religious thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was the dawning of the golden age or something like that. And they all agreed on this. And we were supposed to sort of worship Silicon Valley and worship the entrepreneurs who had built social media. And I thought that was very very amusing. It was all about like complete freedom of expression. Facebook, Twitter. It's so wonderful. And now these. I don't know if it's the same liberals, but generally speaking, liberals from that faction of the Democratic Party are so keen to censor social media.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
And to suppress misinformation. By the way, I was thinking about this on the way over here, because I've been on the left a long time. I'm considerably older than you guys. And censorship was always something that we identified with the other side.
Right.
This is something that right-wingers did. We on the left knew better than that, for all sorts of reasons. But it is fascinating to me that that liberals now are absolutely sold on the idea that we have to suppress misinformation or else they will never be able to win another election in this country. And it's so wrong-headed in so many ways. But it also, just think of what you could do with that, right? If we really are, okay, and I'm just counterfactual here.
Okay.
I'm going to play around because I'm I'm not the language police. I let people say whatever the hell they want. But I just wrote a whole book about how academics, foundation people, liberals, all these people are using the word populist wrong.
Yes.
When do I get to suppress them?
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you want to see that full interview, it goes to all of our premium subscribers. We do 2 of those long form ones per month. This is just one of those awesome conversations. You can become a subscriber right there down in the description. We really appreciate it. And as always, we just appreciate your support so much. It just means absolutely the world. It keeps us with the ability to do the work here that we do every day. So thank you.
Absolutely. Love you guys. We'll see you next week. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.